Welcome. This is a presentation of Application Information Guidance for the 2027 to 2028 Unified Planning Work Program Call for Projects. My name is Chris Snyder. I am the UPWP Program Manager for the Genesee Transportation Council. In this presentation, we will cover some basic information about the UPWP grant application process, including an overview of the Genesee Transportation Council and the UPWP program itself, proposal requirements, and the proposal evaluation process, and the schedule of deadlines, review, and award announcements. To find out more information about the UPWP application process at any time, please visit our public information webpage at publicinput.com/GTC-UPWP. The Call for Public Partnerships information document, the application form, and any program updates will be hosted on this webpage. This webpage also hosts information about previous UPWP programs for your review. The Genesee Transportation Council, otherwise known as GTC, is the Metropolitan Planning Organization, or MPO, for the 9-county Genesee Finger Lakes region. GTC is responsible for federally funded transportation policy, planning, and investment decision-making as it pertains to the surface transportation system. GTC is a policy board made up of elected representatives from local, state, and federal agencies, along with transportation agencies. The funding available under the UPWP program is available to eligible communities located in all 9 counties shown on the map in this slide. GTC is responsible for 3 major work products, including the UPWP. In addition to the UPWP, GTC is also responsible for the Long Range Transportation Plan, or LRTP, and the Transportation Improvement Program, known as the TIP. The LRTP sets the strategic direction for all of GTC's actions and programs and is updated every 5 years. The policies in the LRTP are further refined in the UPWP through individual planning, policy, and technical studies. GTC updates the UPWP every year and includes new projects through a competitive process. Finally, the TIP is the capital program that primarily funds scoping, design, and construction projects for highway and bridge infrastructure. The LRTP acts as the umbrella of policies that inform operations within the organization. Everything that GTC does has to follow the framework set forth in the LRTP. This is true of the UPWP activities, where all proposed projects must support the Long Range Transportation Plan. The UPWP is Genesee Transportation Council's operating plan and annual budget. The UPWP lists the federally funded transportation planning activities that GTC, its member agencies, and other municipalities in the 9-county Finger Lakes region will conduct during the next fiscal year. Activities that are proposed and ultimately funded through this call for projects process must be consistent with the Long Range Transportation Plan. The UPWP primarily supports concept-level planning, analysis, and design activities. Federal transportation planning funding provided by the UPWP cannot be used for detailed engineering and design. On the right, you will notice the cover for the call for project partnerships for the current 2026 to 2027 funding cycle. This call for projects explains the UPWP and the application process and procedures in greater detail. If you are new to the GTC UPWP process, I highly recommend reading this Call for Project Partnerships document, which can be found on our website at gtcmpo.org/UPWP. This is an example list of some eligible activities for funding under the UPWP program. The Call for Project Partnerships document, available on our website, provides a complete list of eligible projects. If after reviewing the Call for Projects Partnerships document you still have questions, please feel free to reach out to me so that the GTC can determine if your project meets our eligibility requirements. As a reminder, UPWP funding cannot be used for engineering, design, or construction-related expenses. The federal transportation planning funding is meant to support funding in the 9-county Genesee Finger Lakes region. GTC is made up of 180 municipalities. Any town, city, or village within the 9-county region, the counties themselves, or member agencies, including our GRTA, the Regional Planning Council, and New York State Department of Transportation, non-for-profit and private organizations can apply for funding, but only with the sponsorship of a member agency or eligible community within the region, who will act as a sponsor on the not-for-profit and private organization's behalf. GTC has provided an application form on our UPWP website. This form must be completed for each application proposed and consists of 10 questions. If you need assistance with this application or have any questions, please reach out. Please note that a minimum of 10% contribution must be provided by the applicant for all proposals. The 10% can be a cash match as direct funds or in-kind services, which is the time of applicant staff dedicated to a project. A combination of both cash and in-kind is also acceptable. Any cash that is provided to GTC as part of the project is provided for consultant services. Projects are expected to be completed within 2 years of commencement. Please keep this in mind when submitting your proposals. Public engagement is required for most projects. Two public engagement sessions are required for planning projects that result in recommendations or actionable items at the end of the contract period. If a project only involves data collection, such as traffic counts, traffic studies, then it is more likely that public engagement will not be required. Please reach out if you have any specific questions about your project and potential public engagement strategies. Question 7 of the application asks for applicants to identify areas of their proposals that align with recommendations of the Long-Range Transportation Plan. This is important to ensure that projects being selected for UPWP funding align with the goals and objectives of transportation in our region. Your responses in this section do not need to be exhaustive, but your application should demonstrate how the proposed project aligns with at least 2 or 3 recommendations listed in the LRTP. A list of all LRTP recommendations has been included as part of the Call for Project Partnerships guidance document located on our website. Initial review of proposals is conducted by the UPWP Development Committee, also known as the UDC. The UDC consists of representatives from the Rochester Metropolitan Planning Area counties. These include Livingston, Monroe, Ontario, and Wayne counties. It also includes the City of Rochester, the New York State Department of Transportation, the Rochester Genesee Regional Transportation Authority, and the Genesee Finger Lakes Regional Planning Council. All projects are reviewed and scored on a 100-point scale. It is important to note that this score is a starting point and is not the sole factor in selecting projects. You will notice going through the application that if you have a more traditional planning project, many of the questions will be directly related to your project. And if you have a more data-driven technical project, such as a traffic study, then the questions may not align well or speak to your project. That is okay. We do try to find a balance of projects each year. Below you will see a schedule for the UPWP process. Eligible agencies can download, complete, and submit after this date. Pre-application virtual sessions can be scheduled with me at any time. These sessions are where we can discuss any questions you may have about the application forms and your projects. Project proposals are due on September 25th at 4 p.m. via email. We do not accept mailed application packages. Once all proposals are received after this date, we will then review the proposals between October and November, prior to the Thanksgiving holiday. If your project is approved, you will know in December, and if you have not been approved, I can offer a debrief to discuss how we can improve your application for the future. The public comment period is in January, and the UPWP project lists February. and will be adopted at the end of February. The UPWP follows the GTC fiscal year, therefore the new UPWP will begin April 1st, 2027. If you are awarded funding, you will not be able to utilize funding for a project until after the start of the fiscal year, April 1st, 2027. Some important considerations, some things to consider. GTC will hold a contract for non-member agencies. GTC handles administration for contracting with the consultant. GTC needs to understand and agree to cash match payment terms before the RFP is released for projects. Quarterly reports for in-kind services are also required to be submitted by the sponsor, similar to the example here. This is necessary for GTC to report federal funding to federal funding agents and must be completed even if there is no financial activity that quarter. If you receive funding, GTC will reach out and assign a GTC program manager to assist you through the UPWP process. The first step will then be to work with your staff liaison at GTC. They will help you to develop your project's scope of work. The next step in the process is to go out for professional services. Your staff liaison will work with you to complete a request for proposals or qualifications. GTC uses a qualifications-based procurement process. This helps ensure that all federal guidelines regarding the use of funding will be met. The project budgets are clearly stated in the UPWP, in the scope of work, and in the RFP or RFQ. Therefore, pricing is not a factor during the consultation process. Additionally, all projects are required to have an executive summary that can be presented to the GTC board prior to closeout of the project. The GTC board adopts the executive summary as evidence of completion of the project. Your municipality is welcome to formally accept the plan or study, but that is not required by GTC. An important note is that any proposal that includes a facility not owned or operated by the applicant must include the owner or operator's permission as part of their application. An example of this would be if a municipality proposes a corridor study on a state or county-owned or operated roadway. Be sure to check who owns facilities before submitting your application and coordinating with those facility owners. I encourage people to reach out with any comments or questions about their project before submitting their application. It is always a good idea to talk through a project before submitting your application to make sure that you have the most competitive application possible and to ensure that you are qualified. You can find all materials for the call for projects at our UPWP landing page at publicinput.com/GTC-UPWP. Again, please reach out to me with any questions or to discuss your project prior to making an application. I look forward to reviewing everyone's applications. Thank you for your time.